I'm still on stage when Shirley comes on. Yeah, that's been ignoring that, yes.
I think so, just because of that space.
Yes.
Because we said the test, we can have a degree of people coming and going, whereas the real people would have this nice idea of MLB.
Of course, it's got to be.
You don't think it's been said enough?
Oh, come on, Mum. How could it be? I mean,
I don't know.
There are young people.
Because I wonder whether it's been said enough, honestly. And I wonder about the motives.
Do motives matter? What, you mean Anglo-Saxon guilt? But really, do they matter? As long as, like, there are young people who don't know who Oswald Mosley was.
Well, I'd rather not know who he was.
Oh, Mum!
Do they have to?
Of course they have to know. They ought to know.
But I wonder sometimes, why is it our job? It's like it had never been here. Never know. Just the space. Like it had never happened, don't you think? Should have gone better.
It was fine.
People love photos. Could be almost anything. I should have been a photographer. Black and white, strange angle. People lap it up.
Not so much on this occasion.
Not so much on this occasion. But it was okay, wasn't it?
So, Moishe goes to the synagogue.
So, Moishe goes to the synagogue.
Moishe?
It's a name.
Moishe goes and asks God to make him win the lottery. Next week he comes back and says, God, I didn't win yet.
But did he ask nicely?
Maybe not nicely enough.
So he asks him again.
This time very nicely.
He beseeches God with fervent prayers. The next week, still no deal. Nothing. So now Moishe asks him, God, why do this to me? And God looks down and he speaks to him. Moishe, he says, meet me halfway. Buy a lottery ticket.
I've told you before.
It's still funny.
I think so.
I had the meeting with Andrea. You want the truth?
Not really. Tell me.
She likes the sound of the exhibition, and there was quite a lot of competition. To be honest, I didn't think she'd go for it. Aren't you pleased?
Of course I'm pleased.
I think she thought it was excellent as an idea.
She's still making decisions then?
Of course, until she goes.
And have you applied? You really should, I
Yes,
think.
I have. But also, I think she sees it as your last chance.
I'm not an administrator.
I was really supportive, but you just have to keep track.
I know. It's just not my strong point. I'm not a data person, I'm a people person.
But Miriam, it's an important part.
I know. Did she say that? Or was that your...
She said it. But she wants you involved in this, for obvious reasons. Of course, we'll have to work on the details and the through line, but in marketing terms, given there's quite a Jewish contingent, don't mind me saying, I mean locally, could you... But apart from that, obviously, it's important. It's something we should be doing.
I suppose.
So, we need to start thinking.
Yep, I will. How are the hedgehogs?
Prickly. They're fine. Lots of them. Someone has to do it.
Suppose they do.
Incidentally now, don't tell me off, but there was a woman this morning went past me in the hijab, you know, the full thing, and I found myself laughing. I always think of that letterbox thing. I mean, it's funny.
It's not funny. Maybe I'm getting too old.
Oh, come on, Mum.
I'm not sure I can manage it. I don't even know if I... Oh, it's too much, too... You know, I don't think I've ever actually done anything about being Jewish in my life. Nothing, you know?
You don't have to have. You say it's going to be focused on a few individuals.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. No problem. I like that, Mother.
Good.
What is it?
Tchaikovsky or Rachmaninoff, one or the other. They're both good,
Can I help?
both Russian. It wasn't their fault. You were late last night.
Oh, really? Rabbi says that when we make a challah, we should think of the dough one as the clay from which Adam was born.
So, now the rabbi tells me what to think when I'm to cook. No little corner of peace.
When you're making challah.
All right. I'm sure the rabbi's right. The rabbi's always right.
He says bread making is bringing life to what was dead, the wheat.
A very clever bread maker he must be.
It's almost like the creation of humanity, he says.
From wheat.
Well, no.
What's dead is dead. The flour, it's dead. It doesn't come back to life. It's dead.
But what he says is that when we add water to the flour, we bring it back to life, turning it into bread. It's creation.
So, every time I make a cup of tea, it's a miracle. I'm bringing the dead tea leaves back to life. I'm God.
I suppose so.
Thank you, Rabbi, for his wisdom. You could have phoned.
What?
Phoned. You could have found a phone and used it.
I didn't think I needed to.
You were late.
It's probably nothing.
Oh, I better have a look at it.
I just saw it one morning by accident. You didn't say.
No, I didn't.
She hadn't seen it.
So, if you could just...
On the ankle, you know. You don't look on the ankle, do you? I mean...
It's lucky I
doesn't
saw it, really.
Very lucky. I wouldn't have had. Us women are meant to pay attention to these things, I suppose.
Mum
but-
doesn't always look after herself.
How long has it been there?
Well, we don't know. But I saw it about, what would it have been, about a month ago?
A month ago.
About that, something like that.
She did say she was going to come. I did tell her to come, but I had to badger her a bit.
Well, I thought, you know, I thought it wasn't worth it. It was just...
And has it changed at all?
Sorry?
Has it changed colour?
But I don't know. I don't think so.
Or changed shape? Got bigger?
I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe it has got bigger. I don't know. So what do you think, Doctor?
Well, it's hard to be certain. To be on the safe side, I'm going to make you an appointment at the dermatology department at the Queen Anne. Just in case.
But what do you think it is?
It's probably nothing. Just need to check.
No. That must have been the consultant. This should be the GP. I don't remember the GP.
I told you should have come up sooner.
I didn't think it was anything. We should have left sooner, she said. We should have left sooner.
But I told you, I did tell you.
I know, and I should have listened.
Yes, you should.
But like he says, it's probably nothing.
Or not.
Probably
You're
nothing.
an idiot, Mum, do you know that?
Yes, I know. Yes, you told me. And things a mother doesn't want to hear.
So, you saw my sister.
She's exhausted.
She's always exhausted.
4 kids.
She was born exhausted. They're all at school now, aren't they? So?
And they do come home from school.
It's a big family. Good for her. What's the problem?
She looked tired.
Yeah, well, the Sorensteins, 5 kids. The Stadlers,
I know.
almost a football team. And before you say it, girls play football these days too.
I know.
It's their choice. It's what they want. She should look forward 20, 30 years' time when they're grown up, kids of their own. Can you imagine the New Year's parties they'll have? Maybe 25 people. Just that one part of the family.
They'll need a bigger house.
They will. They will.
No, seriously, they'll need a bigger house. She said she needed a break.
We all need a break. Stop the world.
It's exhausting for her, Matt. It's not fair.
4 children. She's lucky.
You know, I did say from the start.
Everyone thinks they're too busy when they're young.
You didn't. You always wanted them.
I'm not saying 4 kids. Just...
I know.
And Andrew says there's going to be no pay increases again this year. We're lucky to have a job. Yes, but to be honest, this whole sector's hardly worth working in unless you're actually running the place. Financially, I mean, no offence. I'm taken. Duncan thinks I'm mad to be working here, but I tell him there are rewards.
And they are...
Oh, you know, the camaraderie.
What is it that Duncan does?
He's a financial advisor. He says money's like a pet. You've got to train it, otherwise it can just go out and get itself run over.
Right.
He's quite poetic, Duncan, in his own way. Have you always been happy just doing the sort of thing you're doing?
I think I have, yes.
Good, good. Good for you.
Well, I've been listening to these testimonies.
Okay.
There's Gertrude, flown to London as a child. She did actually fly just before the war. Nothing about the flight, but then she does another interview 10 years later for the BBC this time, and that flight, it's become a story. And arriving has become a scene with a beginning, middle and end, something she hadn't talked about at all in the first interview.
Okay, what's your point?
Well, I'm not sure. Anyway, I've also started talking to people in the Jewish community, the Jewish community.
Is there a Jewish?
Oh, I'd say there's a Jewish, if you know where to look for it.
Should I put Jewish? No. Well, that's good that you're talking.
I think it's important.
Not that they should have a veto, but obviously a real input, a significant input. So what have they been saying?
The fact is, I don't really see myself as part of that community.
No?
Not really. I mean, yes, sort of, but in some ways it's as though I'm more of an outsider than you would be, because they don't know how to relate to me.
You're Jewish.
My daughter once said I'm the least Jewish person she knows.
Wasn't your mother a Holocaust survivor? Surely that makes you...
Well, yes, of course. And no. Anyway, some of them I really liked. And one woman started to go on about Trump.
Okay.
She still loves him. Says he was terribly maligned, misunderstood. All the accusations were obviously fake, and what he did for Israel was fantastic. How he just ignored all the protocols and went for it. And when I started to ask about his victimisation of Muslims in America, do you know what she said? She looked at me very hard and said, "They don't know what victimisation is."
Well, all things are relative.
You're missing the point.
But what did they say about the exhibition?
This is about the exhibition.
What?
This is about the exhibition.
But the Holocaust, specifically. What did they say about our plans to commemorate the Holocaust?
Generally positive. They said things like it had to be respectful and shouldn't let people off the hook. Perpetrators, so-called bystanders, all those responsible, however they were responsible, that too many people had been let off the hook.
Hold on. Yes?
They said things like evil has to be recognised, and those people were evil. And when I said that, if the exhibition goes ahead, I said it was just a proposal.
Good.
Not to raise
Expectations.
When I said we'd been given permission to use some of the oral histories from the British Library, they were really, really pleased. There's a sort of status about those testimonies.
Well, yes, I think there is.
Almost as though they were religious testaments. Scrolls.
I think they probably are, aren't they? In the Jewish community, particularly, wouldn't you say?
I suppose.
So, have you thought about the structure of the exhibition?
Are you handing this over to me?
Well,
You're in charge, not me.
yes, but...
It was your idea.
Okay, what we've got to do, obviously, is first of all lay out a basic chronology. I think this has got to be chronological, don't you? And then we can use extracts from the oral histories to fill in the gaps, yes?
I think this has got to be chronological, don't you?
I'm trying to think differently about him.
Lose your job.
But I don't know how to do it.
I could, yes.
How do you put it all in reverse?
Why would you want to?
Is she able to?
Well, she's my boss. My immediate boss, so yes. Whatever he's done is not so bad.
But I mean it. How do you? How do you stop loving someone?
I don't know, dear. Your father died too soon for me to want to find out.
But isn't it your exhibition?
Yes, but I'm responsible to her.
She can't sack you though, can she? Is it worth it?
I should have known you'd have different ways of...
Chronological, and then use extracts from the oral histories to fill in the gaps.
To fill in the gaps?
Yes. I have been told that sometimes my curating has lacked warmth. So the oral history...
Well, I'm not sure about that. Doesn't that still leave the narrative as, well, the Nazi narrative? So the events are decided by the Nazis and the oral histories are just, what, colour? So we're colouring in the squares, but all the outlines are the Nazi ones.
But surely that was what it was like.
Not for the Jewish people there, no, I don't think so.
They were living in a context...
For them, what happened to them, no, what they did, that was the narrative. What the Nazis did was what the Nazis did.
I'm not sure that makes sense.
The oral history isn't just filling in the gaps. The oral histories are people's lives. They are the narrative.
Of course they are, but obviously visitors will need a clear sense of this happened, then this happened, then this happened. And then within that context, of course, the individual stories are vital. They are what bring it to life.
Or death.
That's not a joke I would have been allowed to make.
Because it's not a joke. I'm going to go and listen to some more. And when was it
He said he was a survivor too.
that Matt had told me about his grandfather?
He only said it once. That's almost all he said. I know where he came from in Poland. Zamość, a beautiful place. The old town is all Italian Renaissance, weirdly. The guy who built it, he loved the Italian Renaissance. It's a World Heritage Site now. Grandad used to smile about that. Sort of smile. But it wasn't really a smile. What World Heritage, he'd say. World Heritage of what? That's all. That sort of smile. What I know, I don't know from him. I know from poking around, asking other people, digging. Because he wouldn't talk.
He couldn't talk.
He didn't talk. But that didn't mean it wasn't there. It was there all the time, in the silence. Silence like concrete. He came to England before the war, 1937.
I think that's what he said.
1936.
Or that. Maybe that.
A few years before the war, his parents got him out. He was their priority, I suppose. He was the future. He had to be safe, but then they were both taken and murdered. Both of his parents. I know my dad asked him, I asked him about, his life and our lives, the lives of my father and I and his, they were separate, like two worlds. He was determined that one shouldn't have any effect on the other. Then had nothing to do with now. None of us had any business asking about it. No business trying to become part of his history. It was locked.
Did he get angry with you?
It was like he had two lives. No. Cold, I'd say. He wouldn't go there. And the rest of the time, brightness, but false brightness, and a remoteness, a distance.
He was a nice man, Matt.
And it hung over all of us, his silence about what he'd been, who he was, his refusal to engage. It's still here. I can feel it, the heaviness of that silence, of what wasn't said.
But when did he say that?
When?
I'm a survivor too.
A TV documentary. We turned it on and it was on. He'd never have chosen to watch it, but then he didn't turn it off. Interviews of survivors, people who'd been through the camps, as if he felt there was a sort of hierarchy of survival, and he'd been put at the bottom of it because he hadn't been through that, he'd been through something else. And the rest, just this huge, dense silence, weighing on himself, on my father, on me. It's like I'm still trying to shift that weight. Ridiculous.
He couldn't talk about it.
He didn't.
Do you think he felt guilty?
Why should he have felt guilty? But maybe having 2 children, grandchildren, that was his giving 2 fingers to Hitler.
Could be. But being born in order to be 2 fingers to Hitler, is that what you'd want to be? What do you want? 2 fingers to Hitler?
Well, Hitler's not dead. You've always got to have 2 fingers ready.
So what was it like? Little by little, realising what was happening. A feeling of complete loss of power, loss of control. You were someone things happened to, not someone who did things.
So, were my notes helpful?
I've done an initial draft.
Excellent.
But do you think we should be telling the stories of the survivors or those who didn't survive? They're very different because
But the draft, I think we have to start with Kristallnacht. At the beginning of the exhibition, I mean, you have to start somewhere.
And why start there?
The beginning of the really intense persecution, wasn't it? I mean, you tell me.
Not the 12th century then, the massacre in York?
No.
Or the expulsion from Spain? Though that was actually later.
We're talking about the Holocaust, Miriam.
Yes, but when did it start? All right, let's at least go back to the Treaty of Versailles. The Jews as scapegoats for Germany, losing the First World War.
Well, in that case, why not go back to the... What did you say? The massacre in York? I didn't know about it, to be honest.
No, well...
Was it...
It doesn't matter.
Of course, everything's in some sort of wider context. That's why we have to narrow it down, start somewhere relevant.
Do we?
We do. We have to get this done. This is about the Holocaust. It's not about... Miriam, are you... Well, are you meaning to be... Do you just not want to do this?
This exhibition, if it happens, I want to know what we're trying to achieve.
Well, what we've said
But
is...
are we trying to educate people, or to warn, or commemorate, or are we trying to entertain people?
Entertain?
How are you feeling?
Oh, you know,
Anything I can do?
provide me with a sensibly designed reproductive system. Would you mind doing the cooking tonight?
Of course.
Strange to think that I'm unclean once a month,
Which is nonsense.
isn't it?
You know, we are going to be the last generation to actually have known them. The survivors. That's a sort of responsibility.
I suppose. So what do I do, Mum?
You can't ask me that.
Who am I meant to ask?
He's a lovely man, Abby.
I know he is. It'd be okay if he wasn't. I don't see him changing, Mum. He'll always...
People change.
You haven't.
He'll come round.
No, but he thinks that I will.
I actually thought... I thought we were in with a chance this time.
Well, I'll give it... It wasn't for lack of trying. I'm still taking the pill, Mum.
Does he know? So, what would you do? Leave him? Leave? Walk out on your life?
Maybe I should. Maybe I should do it now. For him.
And maybe you should wait. He loves you. You know he does. He'll come round.
I know he loves me.
I was actually reading that some angles are better than others. More effective.
Were you?
So maybe we should...
Try some interesting angles.
Well, yeah.
Swing from the chandeliers.
Not exactly.
I'm up for that. Just get your aim right. I remember you telling me, if you want to make God laugh, first tell him your plans.
That's an old one. But yes, and God laughs a lot.
You don't think there's anything wrong with one of us, do you?
Maybe there's something wrong with both of us.
No, really.
Really? Maybe there is.
I never asked you to marry another grandchild of a survivor.
No, Mum.
So you got what you asked for.
What I asked for was someone who would understand me.
And he does.
Who knows? No, I don't think so. It's just luck. Random. Chemistry. Random chemistry.
Hmm.
We're not in a rush, are we?
Entertain. You know, like the London Dungeon or Madame Tussauds, the Chamber of Horrors.
Miriam!
I mean, death, torture, it's fun. We love it. Watch it on TV all the time. Have you seen Ripper Street?
We're not trying to entertain
Or
people.
those East End tours, you know, a prostitute killed on every corner. How it was done, the strangling, the sounds and smells of death, the blood, the entrails. An exhibition like the old-style public hangings. People loved those. We could be sort of tour guides.
Look, I thought this would be good for you.
What?
Yes, an acknowledgement.
I don't come to work for people to be good to me. Did I ask for anything to be acknowledged?
I thought this would be a good thing to do, that you'd appreciate it. Not just good for the museum, though I'm sure it will be, but simply good, the right thing to do. We have never done anything directly with or for the Jewish community, and I thought we should.
So why not do a history of the bagel?
Sorry?
Or Jewish jokes down the ages. Mummy, I didn't catch the bus. I walked home and saved £1. Oh, next time, don't catch a taxi. Then you'll save £5. Jewish humour. We could do an exhibition of Jewish humour. People would love that. But no, Jewish, the Holocaust.
Those things aren't quite as important.
Because we
as
do
the
something for Black History Month, we should be doing something for Holocaust Memorial Day.
Not exactly.
But approximately. How are the hedgehogs?
What?
How are the hedgehogs?
It's not really time.
No,
for-
I'm interested, I am.
You think I'm strange, don't you?
No?
If you really want to know, they are beautiful creatures, and sometimes they need a little bit of looking after.
Look, what sort of?
Looking after. Food. Water.
I didn't know that.
And I just like doing it. I've tried mindfulness. I prefer looking after hedgehogs. More satisfying.
Okay. Look, Shirley, I understand. The exhibition, it's important for you.
It's important, full stop.
You think it'll make a splash, get you noticed, and it probably will. And I really hope you don't mind me saying it. You think it'll help you get the director's job. And it might.
Okay, that's it.
Do you think he was trying to protect your parents and you?
Well, possible. I hope I haven't inherited it. That distance from him to my father.
Yeah, of
I
course
think it
you
was my father to
haven't.
me too.
It's not genetic. That kind of thing doesn't just get into the genes.
Doesn't it? Isn't that how mutation works? We survive, we learn things.
You could have phoned.
What?
Phoned. You could have found a phone. It's not so hard, and you could have used it.
I didn't think I needed to.
You were late.
I didn't think.
You didn't think you needed to let me know you were safe.
I was fine.
That you weren't dead in a ditch somewhere, or worse, much worse, but no, you were fine. I see you are fine, but I
I'm
wasn't.
sorry, Mother.
Ah. Now, finally, I'm sorry, Schmorry. Sorry doesn't do it when things have happened to you.
Nothing happened to me.
Things happen. Things don't happen and things happen and you don't get to choose. Things happen to people. It's me that invents it, you think. Nothing happens to people, you think, just because they are not bad, just because you are a good person.
Sorry, Mother.
Enough with your sorry. You read it about it in the paper every day, things happen.
But I wasn't so late.
The world is dangerous, Miriam. Dangerous. You think you are safe. In a safe place, in a safe country, in a safe world. You are not. Because there is no such place. Danger is everywhere. You have to understand. Here, everywhere.
Hey.
Okay, no, not okay. I was right. We both were. Is it for this I survived? Is this my reward? To worry about you every moment of the day and you not to care one little bit.
Mother.
And you can go to your rabbi and you can tell him from me.
Tell him what, Mother? Was that day, or was it earlier?
It's a great film.
I didn't like it.
What was it?
The Seventh Seal.
Oh, I think it's fantastic.
You are just too arty.
So, what didn't you like?
I met death today. We are playing chess.
There you go. It's just so morbid.
It's about death. What do you expect? What do you want it to be?
That's the problem.
And what was that one last week?
Meet Joe Black.
Which was just silly.
Wasn't that the one with...
You've got this arty film subscription. Everyone else has Netflix, but no.
They're not really arty, they're just good.
Yes, I remember it. I really liked it.
That's probably because you like Brad Pitt.
Abby.
No, I think it was Anthony Hopkins,
Mum.
wasn't it?
Anyway, all the films he watches are about death.
No, they're not.
The Bucket List.
That's a buddy movie.
And yet buddies who are about to die.
Okay, they're sort of serious movies, and serious movies tend to touch on death now and again. What do you want to watch? Jennifer Aniston?
Once in a while, I'd cope. And the great thing is, you know what's going to happen. Boy meets girl, boy hates girl, girl hates boy, then some sort of event takes place. They see each other differently. Hate is transformed into admiration. Hard to accept, but yes. And finally, public declaration of love. Happy ending. Sort of the opposite of real life. I'd cope.
You like to know what's going to happen.
You know what's going to happen in your films too.
Which is?
Everybody dies.
So, what are you reading?
Death in Venice. You see? I think it's to do with you being in advertising.
Yeah.
All your energy goes into the positive, making people see the best in
Fear
whatever
sells too
you're
actually
selling.
really well.
But mainly,
who's keeping an eye on the babysitter?
You know what I mean.
I mean, really, who is?
We haven't got a babysitter.
Are you going to have a baby? No, I'm not going to have a baby. So, tell us, what's this new job you're going for?
Right. Well, it's in a museum.
Wow.
Not really. Freelance, forever jogging stuff. I've decided it's just a bit too... I think maybe a bit of stability.
That sounds good.
Although, you know, it used to be called community arts. Now it's community engagement.
It's still people.
Like customer engagement or customer service. It's a different ethos. Customers aren't people.
You can still do a good job though, can't
It
you?
used to be organic.
What does that really mean?
Now, engagement strategies, project planning and evaluation. The great new industry of evaluation. Same as we have to rate everything, well, every time we buy a plug on Amazon. Now we have to rate everything at work as well. And everyone. It's not enough just to do things anymore.
That's sort of good, isn't it?
As if somehow getting people to tick a 5 means what we're doing is actually right. If the customer approves. Oh, I must be getting old. I am getting old. I am old.
Mom!
Sort out a pension. I know you think you'll be young forever.
I already have,
Well,
Mum.
make sure you do. I wish I had. And your father was just as useless.
His job.
Right. The ad says they've got this person who looks after community involvement and they need someone to help her.
And what's she like?
I don't know. I suppose I'll
I need an apology from you.
find out.
You can tell your rabbi, as it says in the Torah, the first yield of dough you should set aside a loaf as a gift. So, I will do that. As a gift to God. Should he be so kind as to be looking this way at the time and paying attention, but not because the rabbi says so.
So, little by little, loss of power, helplessness, nowhere to turn, threat to your existence, which means assumptions, plans, future, gone. Nothing but degradation. Identity wiped, negation of humanity. I apologise.
I am not doing this exhibition to make a splash. Is that understood?
Understood. I apologise.
You're not the only person to.
To what?
Being Jewish doesn't give you exclusive rights to care about things.
Did I ever say it did?
Okay,
Okay. When are the interviews for director?
Next week. To be honest, I think I deserve it. And I think the rest of the staff, well, I think they like working with me. But I'm not doing this exhibition.
Okay.
All right. So,
Yes. Well, I've been listening to more of these testimonies. There's Evelyn, I think it is. She talks about a Jewish shopkeeper shot for accusing a German officer of stealing. She witnessed it. Shot dead in the street. But she only says this in the second interview about her childhood. First time, also about her childhood, it's not there. Completely absent. So, had she forgotten about it? How do you forget to mention something like that?
what exactly?
I'm just wondering. Maybe in that first interview, she hadn't felt able to say it for whatever reason, but later, 10 years later, she could. Maybe it had become allowed, or maybe she had allowed herself, or maybe the interviewer was different. Or maybe the people she was doing the interview for were expecting different things, and she was responding.
Yes, that's very interesting. Meanwhile, I've been thinking, I think that to really pull people into this, we have to horrify people.
Do we?
No, please don't. Not in a Jack the Ripper sort of way like you said, but seriously, we do have to really horrify people, to jolt them. The more I've listened to those tapes, people don't realise we have to horrify people, shock them into understanding.
But do you think horrifying people means they understand things? The Americans were shocked, she said, but not just shocked. Mum, you've got 20 tins of salmon in here.
So, I like them.
But 20 tins?
So I like it a lot. Is there a law against it?
Maybe she was right. She'd have got through a pandemic.
The Americans, when they arrived, when they rescued us, they couldn't believe it.
I'd been alive for nearly 20 years before she even started to tell me this.
Couldn't believe it. But who could? Tell me, who could? No one who had ever seen anything like it before. How are you meant to react when you land on another planet? Huh? Another planet they landed on, where things have happened that are... It was something you could never imagine. No one. Pilots. Things that are alien. Alien. But it's the Americans, I want to say. Do you know what I saw on their faces, the Americans?
No.
They were ashamed. They were ashamed. Now, why would they be ashamed? Tell me. What did they have to be ashamed of? They were coming here, they were, I suppose, they were coming to saving us, weren't they? But they were, and they were the victors. But they were, it wasn't just that they were disgusted, so disgusted they were, but they were ashamed. What I saw on their faces was that.
So, why?
Humanity. They were ashamed of. That's all I can think. ashamed of being part of this, part of a human race that could do this, ashamed of the meaning of it.
And what was the meaning?
What was the meaning? That's a good question, Miriam. You know what I've learned? Your father was an engineer, a good one. Understand the facts, you understand the world. This happens, so this happens. How the world works, if only. But I don't think so. Your brain, you think it works with the facts, information. What can you not do with it? Information. The Encyclopedia Britannica, you'd have loved that. The more volumes, the better. Fill the house with them. If we could just have enough information, but no, enough with the facts. No. What things mean is what we work with. That I saw things that no one should ever see. That's a fact. Things that shouldn't be, that's a fact. But it's what it means that there were times that I wished my friend Deborah did. You have to have a friend, don't you? And Deborah was mine. She was close to dying, and I was good to her. I was kind to her. I stroked her, tried to make her laugh. I sang to her, and I wanted her to be dead. So that the bread from her hand, I could have it. What's the meaning of that?
Are you sure you want to talk about this, Mum?
No, I don't want to. You know, people talk about the past. The past is what happened. What happened, it happened. I would love to unhappen it. I'd unhappen all of it, but you can't. But that's just the facts that happened. When that happened, then that happened. That's the past, yes? But what we've got to do, somehow, it's our job. Tell me, why should it be our job? So, what do we learn out of this? It's the meaning we have to remember, not the facts. You know, I forget the things I would love to remember, and I remember the things that I would love to forget. Now, if the rabbi could just help me out with that one. It's not very fair, is it?
Not very.
All these years, to try not to remember. How can you get yourself to not remember something? And I think that's why it hasn't gone away, ever. Anywhere to put it. I haven't anywhere to put it. Well, where would you put it? I ask you, where would you put it? For that sort of thing, there isn't a shelf in the brain.
It needs to be removed.
Cancer?
Oh, it's possible. We have to find out. Anyway, we'll get it removed, and that should be the end of it. And we'll find out what it is when we've removed it.
So what happens next?
Well, we book you in for the excision.
And will that be the end of it?
Quite possibly, yes. We'll have to see. So, we're going to get you seen to as soon as possible.
Mum?
Right. Shirley, you said your partner, Duncan?
Husband.
Your husband, you said he was a financial advisor? Do you think he might be able to help me?
He's quite expensive.
Just informally, do you think he could?
What's it about?
Well, I'd rather not. I've got a bit of a problem and I wonder if he could give me a bit of advice.
What sort of problem?
Well, it's debt, you know.
Not really.
Well, I had a rough period a few years ago, and since then, well, instead of being able to pay it back, it's just... So I was wondering if Duncan...
I think you'd be better off at Citizen's Advice.
Right.
That's not really the sort of advice Duncan gives.
Of course.
He gives advice to people who have money and want to know where to put it, not to
Of
people
course.
who... Couldn't your daughter help you out?
No.
I thought she was doing quite well.
She is.
Well then, you know...
I'm not going to ask her, okay?
Yes. Sorry about...
It's fine. It's fine. It's nothing serious anyway. It was just to tinker with nothing.
Empathy. The exhibition, empathy, that's what we need.
Right.
Fellow feeling. We want visitors to empathise, to feel the pain of others, to almost experience some of those events.
You think so?
Like in the Blitz exhibition, where they come in and the light dims. There's that low thrumming of the German planes, then distant explosions. We know we're not safe. The explosions are getting closer. Finally, it's almost as if the bomb falls right next to you, and there are the effects, lighting, sound, people yelling, so we feel as though we're right there, right in the middle of it. They experience what the people experienced at that moment. We need that. We need the visitors not just to know about things or even witness things. We need them to be part of the experience.
I was reading Museum's journal. Did you know museums are rated as more trustworthy than either books or TV?
Doesn't surprise me.
Yes, books, TV, apparently people sense that there's a bias there, the writer, the director, even the news. But museums, they tell you the truth, don't they?
We try.
We try, without any bias at all. Empathy, experiencing the past.
As far as that's possible.
You do know it's the Holocaust we're talking about.
Well, obviously there'll be limits.
Oh, good.
But still, the general principle...
And who exactly do we get people to empathise with?
With the Jewish people and the others who suffered from the Holocaust.
Right.
To feel what they felt, as far as that's possible, obviously.
And what about the Nazis?
What about them?
We don't ask people to empathise with them.
They were evil. Why would we want to?
What's this empathy for?
If you get people to empathise, to feel as these people were feeling, then I believe they can genuinely understand what it was like.
So if the empathy is so we can understand people, surely we need to empathise with the Nazis. They're the ones we need to understand.
Why?
They were evil, I know. I've often thought of the people my parents must have known. Sergeant Major Kraut, born Frankfurt, 1910, let's say. Brought up in the shadow of the First World War. Taught that Germany was unjustly punished for its part in the war. Taught that by teachers and by his parents. Learns that the Jews were responsible for the defeat. Feels the weight of national humiliation. Lives through the economic collapse. Sees the suffering of his family. Everything falling in on them. He knows it's wrong. and it can all be traced back to the Jews. But then he's given hope of salvation by the National Socialists. National Socialists, on the side of the common people, sincerely believes in theories of racial superiority. He's been taught that too. Makes sense, doesn't it? We're not all the same. It's science. And he's surrounded by people who believe what he believes, so he believes it more. A whole society that believes what he believes. How are we doing on the evil front?
I've never told you about his paperweights.
He's proud, genuinely proud, to serve his country. It's not cynicism. It's not with any guilt that he does what he does. No, he's proud to carry out the will of the Führer. It's what he deserves. It's what his country deserves. Is he a bad man? Isn't this the person we should be empathising with?
Understanding him, possibly, but...
No, not understanding, but getting inside the skin of. It's always just been here.
No, it hasn't always been there. What do you know?
I don't believe that humanising evil is what we're here for.
Just enough weight to hold Father's papers in place. Keeps them in order.
And putting evil outside of history, putting the Holocaust outside of history, oh, an aberration, nothing to do with the rest of anything. Is that what we're here for? Yes, they were evil. They became evil. But evil is part of... I wish I had asked you, Mother. How did you hold on to your faith, Mother? And why? Why did you? And why couldn't I? But I never asked.
It was the cinemas I missed. I used to love it. But there were certain places we couldn't go. Theatres, cinemas, not anymore. Not everyone, just us Jewish people. But you, I remember, it was for Ich leuchten die Sterne. The Stars Shine. That film I really wanted to see. Right around the block. But no. Then there were places we couldn't walk, couldn't meet, just us. If they could have made places where we couldn't breathe, they would have. Well, of course they did in the end. Then, like cans on a shelf or cargo, they labeled, literally labeled, and my father's promotion stopped. For this he has waited for years, like a patient idiot, but no. And not long after, he is told he can't keep the job he does have. So, a family with no money coming in, and little by little, our world shrinking smaller and smaller until there's nothing. Shrunk to nothing. And then, we don't have a home. One day they simply take it, turn up and take it, and that's it. That house had been my home all my life. But now, the things in our home, the things we couldn't carry, what's to happen to them? And we couldn't carry much. I went back after the war, just once.
From having removed it, and as a result of those findings,
So why couldn't you have told us before?
as I understand it, you've been kept informed
So
at
how
every
much?
stage of how much what.
How much more will they have to take away? For God's sake.
There's no point in being.
Being what? You telling me my mum's got cancer and it could be...
It could possibly
And now you
be.
tell me I'm not meant to be upset.
I'm not telling you not
So
to be.
how much more tissue have they got
Well,
to take away?
as I say, the lesion has turned out to be considerably more than 1 millimetre deep. So that means, firstly, that there's the possibility, and it is only a possibility, of it having spread to other parts of the body, to the lymph glands, and then on from there. But first, we have to go back and carry out a second operation on the ankle to make sure that all the malignant tissue has been removed. So there has to be an excision of tissue. both deeper and wider. This means that this time there will have to be a skin graft, as the wound will be obviously much wider than the present one. It will be too wide to heal otherwise, particularly on the ankle, without the skin graft. We will have to take skin from elsewhere, probably the groin area.
And will it take?
Usually skin grafts are successful. Occasionally they're not, and then they have to be repeated. But anyway, at the same time, we will also have to remove a lymph node. The lymphatic system, the system for removing waste from the bloodstream, is a little different in every individual. So the node may be behind the knee, or it may be in the groin. We will have to see. We'll need to inject a mildly radioactive liquid to identify exactly
what happens
where.
then?
After
the operation?
There'll be some weeks of convalescence. Again, it varies from person to person. And the leg may be swollen as the lymphatic system...
No. Sorry, I meant what happens about the cancer?
We will have to see and wait to get the results when the lymph node has been removed.
And if it has spread, what then? Chemotherapy, radiotherapy?
Well, that would depend, but those forms of treatment are much more targeted than they used to be, and it's quite possible that you could be treated by pills alone. But this really is jumping the gun a little. We have to find out first whether or not... Yes, Mrs. Fisher?
But whatever else you say about him, he's got a turn of phrase. You remember Watermelon Smiles? You've got to admit it's quite funny.
Not really.
I mean, you can see what he means. It's not like hostile environment. That was a really nasty turn of phrase. Was that Theresa May? I mean, I know immigration's got to have limits. It's not unreasonable. But that's a really, really unpleasant way of putting it. It's like invasion of immigrants. So that's the other one. I mean, it's not an invasion, which isn't to say there aren't a lot of immigrants.
Abby.
All right. I'm always getting told off at home. I never get told off at work. So what's it say?
Well, it says they're pretty healthy little swimmers. They should be all perfectly okay doing doggy paddle or whatever. Breaststroke towards their destination. And it says there's lots, but a lot of them. A positive tribe of them, and they're the right shape.
Like tadpoles.
So
it's not you then.
Doesn't seem to be.
Which means it's me.
It does look like that.
So my turn.
Are you happy to take it?
Letrozole.
Yeah. Abby.
Have you seen the side effects?
Possible side effects.
Headaches, nausea, vomiting.
Not necessarily.
Constipation or diarrhea, but not both apparently. I think both
Abby,
would be a bit.
all
aching
medicines
joints,
have some...
depression, osteoporosis, I think. Oh, and high blood pressure. I think there's more. There's only so much you can remember. So am I happy to take
Look,
it?
I didn't mean happy as in happy. We might be able to go straight to IVF, though I don't think we can. It's so we can have a family, Abby.
Yes, I know what it's for.
So, you went back to where you'd lived just once,
Just once.
and they were...
They were very nice. The neighbors, the Copleys. We were nice to them, they were nice to us. I used to play with the younger sister, Anna, in the park, and yes, I went to the cinema with her at least once, with her father. Nice. Yes. And they were friendly. With them we had no trouble at all. That would we. And then when it all started, when the finger pointing started, when the beating started, but we were still there, before the ghetto. Well, then they weren't bad with us, they didn't do anything bad to us, they were nice. They just became unavailable. I suppose they had to, do you think? I mean, they couldn't be seen to be, it could have been very bad for them but they did nothing bad to us. So, yes, just after the war, I went back. They were surprised to see me. Well, they should have been, shouldn't they? Esther, she said, Esther, I thought you must have... But she didn't finish the sentence. I could have finished it for her, of course I could, but it didn't seem polite. So they gave me tea and little cakes, Rhubarberstreusel, and it's almost as if we were back before any of it had ever started, as though it had never had happened. What was there to show for it? Just people. And then Herr Koppler. I think he'd been an accountant. He says, I think you might like this. I think you might like it back. So first as a gift, but then not. It wasn't a gift, it was a give back. The paperweight.
It had been yours.
I told you. Yes, it had been ours. The family's, and I thought, good. That was a good thing to do. So yes, I accepted it back, and then I left. They were good people. They would have been good people. A bad time and a bad place.
Well, that was amazing. Green light. It's happening. The exhibition's finally on.
Great.
It could be one of the best things we've ever done. That's what Andrea said.
Right.
And she said she wants me to focus on the changing face of the borough exhibition. So she'd like you to take over, basically to curate it. It's really your opportunity to... Anyway, how would you feel about that?
I don't know.
You've done exhibitions before, and now we have a pretty detailed outline. You'll be working with Maddie on the design and Juan on the interactives, and Caroline can help on the text. Well?
And it's got to be this way round. You working on the changing face thing and me...
That's what Andrea wants. And Gemma can work with you on the schedule.
Okay.
Excellent! Keeping to the schedule is really important. And I'll be here, you won't be on your own, but basically all yours. Your baby.
They didn't have to.
To what?
They didn't have to give it back.
What?
The paperweight, they could have kept it.
I suppose they could have.
They were good people. They would have been. Could have been. No, they were. They had been. I had liked them, the Copleys, and thus they had liked two neighbours. Good neighbours.
So he believes it more. A whole society that believes what he believes. How are we doing on the evil front?
All right. Not just to be able to understand, but to engage.
Okay.
That's why we want people empathising, so they engage. Have you decided what characters we're going to focus on?
People?
Okay, people. You need to decide.
It's not who we include, it's who we leave out. All those lives, all the unsaid.
They'll be represented by proxy. So did you say you talked with your mother about...
A few times.
Before she...
Yes, she had to.
That must have given you some insights.
Insights.
I just mean...
Yes. Actually, I don't think I ever... I'm not sure I ever quite got to her memories. I just got to what she told me.
Isn't that the same?
I'm not sure she even got to her memories in a way. She got to memories of memories. She got to what she could allow herself, and then to what she could say. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, from all this listening, what's coming across is that no one really foresaw it.
Really?
I mean, they foresaw things getting worse, getting a lot worse even, but not what actually happened. I suppose evolution is really always looking backwards, learning from the past, trying to build on it, but it's not much good at telling us what the future's going to be. And meanwhile, the present, if it goes on for a while, as soon as the present becomes a bit of the past as well as the present, we call it normal. We almost forget it had ever been different.
So, in terms of the exhibition...
This is the exhibition. It needs to be about how the totally abnormal gets turned into the normal. How the immoral, the corrupt, the appalling, in the language, in action,
I think we should just tell their
normal.
stories. Tell their stories in the context
Of the chronology, yes. But that is their stories. Their stories aren't what happened. This was imposed, that was imposed, this was taken away, that was taken away. No, the story isn't events, it's what was going on in people's heads. Not just Jewish people's heads, but everyone's. The new normal, it's not so bad.
But we can't get into their heads, can we?
I never asked her how she felt. She told me things, some of the things that happened, but she didn't get emotional.
But she told you things that happened.
Well, I couldn't ask her how she felt.
Still, we can try to get the public to feel some of
Can
the...
You know, the real trouble with your empathy, it's about the personal.
The stories are...
I mean, the personal as opposed to the...
That's what this is about, honouring.
Honouring people's memories, honouring people's stories.
I think so, and that's
Did
why
Mum want to be
empathy-
honoured? Did she want her stories to be honoured? Good people, bad people, anyway, individuals. Nothing bigger. So if only people would all be good, we'd be fine.
Actually, yes.
Because it's all personal. Down to the individual. And then we don't have to think about systems, about cycles, about...
Paul, in design, you know that thing about Romanians moving in next door and would you feel comfortable?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Paul actually has Romanians moved in last week next door to him.
So,
And he feels uncomfortable.
well, what is it he doesn't like?
Them being next door. But they're pretty different.
Abby, can you hear
Oh,
yourself?
give it your best. Have you always got to be so holier than thou?
Why are you angry? Thank you, Abby.
For what?
You'll be the best mother in the world.
No, I won't.
You will.
I actually won't. Anyway, the IVF might not work if they give it to us.
They'll give it to us.
And if they don't.
Why wouldn't they?
And if it doesn't work.
Then we'll have another go.
They don't give you that many chances. And then you have to pay.
So we'll pay.
Have you any idea how much it costs?
Why are you being so negative?
Just realistic.
This is so we can have a family.
So you keep saying.
So why are
Unborn
you...
children weren't meant to be two fingers to Hitler. Sorry.
They're not.
We don't need to keep the line going. It's not a responsibility. The line will be perfectly happy without us. And we don't need a whole tribe of children to look after us in our old age or if one of us dies. It's not the 19th century and we don't live in such... I don't want children, Matt. I never have.
That's what you used to say, but I thought...
It's what I say now. I don't want children.
Okay, so you don't want to go on IVF?
No, I don't.
I can understand that. I accept there are possible side effects, so maybe it'll be better if
Not
we...
the pill. I never came off it.
What?
I didn't want to come off it, so I didn't.
So when we were trying,
It wasn't such a hardship.
and when I was being tested, and when we were planning,
You were planning.
we were planning a future all this
You
time.
didn't let me say it, Matt. You didn't
What
let
does that
me.
even mean? When do I ever stop you talking? You've lied to me. All this time you've been lying to me, having me believe, having me hope.
You're very good at hoping.
So, spell it out. Why exactly don't you...
Everything. Work, pregnancy, nappies, mothers' circles, babysitters, parents' associations, and none of it. None of it appeals to me. I've seen it and it's not for me. It never has been. Ever. It sounds criminal.
No, it's not. What's criminal is you lying to me day after day, month after month, letting me believe, and all the time you were making it impossible. You're despicable.
You wouldn't let me tell you. Didn't you? Do you understand? You wouldn't let
I
me.
never stopped you.
You and your hope, your everlasting bloody hope and need.
What?
Blackmailing me with your hope and your need.
You know, at least if you told me, it would have been my decision what to do.
But you'd have never made it because I changed, wouldn't I? Or you could always get me to change. Well, I'm not changing, Matt. This is me.
That's what she said. She said, "This is me." But whether she said those words, whether she said, "This is me," maybe she did. We should have left sooner.
Just wanted to check in that everything's going fine.
I'm no use to you, Matt.
It is.
So, could you tell me?
So yes, little by little, loss of power, helplessness, nowhere to turn, threat to your existence, and assumptions, future, gone. Nothing but degradation, the wiping of identity, negation of being human. And your beliefs, what beliefs? Where is order? Where is meaning in all of that? I've decided on the form of the exhibition. It's going to be chaotic.
Chaotic?
Chaos. As living is, isn't it? Experience.
What do you mean?
But before we impose something that seems like sense on it, before we turn it into a story.
I'm sorry, you want the exhibition to be chaotic?
A narrative. You think the Holocaust made sense as it happened? It made sense? Some sort of smooth narrative?
I'm sure it must have
I
felt
think it
very-
must not have made sense. It should not have made sense. Though later, of course.
And you want this to be in the exhibition?
We impose sense on things. We impose.
Is there something wrong with that?
Coherence. And then memories change, you know? Things we remember one day, not another. Or in a different...
Miriam, we have to be respectful of these testimonies.
And what does that mean? There's one guy in one interview, he goes into all the detail of being hung from a hook as punishment, not just the pain, but the humiliation of it. Can you imagine it? Hung from a hook in the ceiling for hours for some petty perceived offence, but then another interview, 8 years later, almost nothing about it. That humiliation? Gone, it seems. Never happened. Why?
Is there any point in drawing attention to
Another
things
one, Alice, she uses identical phrases in different interviews.
If those were the words that people use...
Identical. No, she's not quoting, she's describing, but describing in exactly the same words.
So...
It's fixed. So, Is she remembering the event or remembering the words? The story she's made from the event?
Does it matter? You can't have it both ways. You can't complain when the same person says different things on different occasions and also when they say the same thing.
But exactly the same thing? Remembering words, the exact words, not the event. Not the event anymore.
Our job, part of our job, is to be respectful.
This is being respectful.
That means putting together an account that respects the trauma that these people have suffered. We piece together a coherent, respectful account.
But there was nothing coherent about the
A
event.
coherent, respectful account to help flesh out the events of those times. So, everyone else who has ever looked at this, they're all wrong, are they?
But it's your exhibition.
Sort of.
Can she fire you?
Some of the hedgehogs have died.
What? Yes, she can fire me.
I've told him
What would you do?
It won't come to that.
I need to unlove him before he... How do you do that, Mum? How do you unlove someone?
Some idiot put out milk for them. They can't cope with it. Why would anyone do something so stupid?
What would you do?
I'm not sure.
How could they?
Try to find a comfortable little place on the scrap heap, I suppose. I'm really sorry.
Why is it so hard?
Do you choose to love someone?
No.
But you think you can choose to not love them?
So everyone else who's ever looked at this, they're all wrong, are they?
Did you know Shakespeare's history plays were mostly fiction?
I didn't know.
I was quite upset when I learned that at A-level. Much less accurate than The Crown, apparently. But he was creating a memory, a sort of national memory in the end. Henry V, Richard III. We remember them now, don't we? Though we never met them. From the plays. He smoothed them all out. Characters, made whatever sense he wanted. Legitimise his Tudor masters, apparently. When we put on this exhibition, Shirley, we'll be creating a memory from their memories.
Which is why it needs to be ordered.
Look, if these things were written, would we take them as gospel? No. This person writes this account, that person writes that account, they contradict, that this person wants to give this impression, that person wants to give that impression. So just because they're personal, spoken testimonies and Holocaust testimonies...
Miriam, are you completely out of your mind? Nobody's interested. Nobody's interested in comparing this account with that account. Nobody wants to know that someone remembers whatever incident on one day and not on another.
The corpus. Did I tell you about the corpus?
The public just want to know what happened.
The neighbours.
The neighbours, yes. Good people.
That's what we're there for. To tell them what happened in a coherent way, in a way they can understand.
They gave me back the paperweight.
In a way that makes sense of the events.
It's I thought it kept it for me. Thought I almost certainly didn't expect.
That's what we're here for. That's our responsibility. That's our job.
But anyway, when I went back, they gave it to me. They didn't have to, but they wanted me to have it back.
Yes.
It was good of them. It meant something, you know?
Yes.
Yes. And then, as I left, the door was open to the dining room. I could see through.
And?
And there was a dining room table and a dresser and a cabinet. That table. Every meal of my childhood I had eaten at that table.
They took everything? Kept everything?
But not that. I think it says something.
Well, what on earth does it say?
It was an acknowledgement.
Okay. But that's not much use, really, is it? Not when they've held on to...
I think the door they left open purposefully. The door of the living room as I was leaving. An accident, you think it was? It could have been an accident. Freud says there's no such thing as accidents. That sort of accident, but no. They must have been conscious of... They were saying, I want that you should see this.
Why would they do that?
Some sort of apology. They weren't going to give me back a wardrobe now, were they? I live in England. But it was there, and they wanted me to know.
You think that was it?
That was it. Not easy for them to say the words. So the door they left open.
Okay, if that's... Okay. It's quite heavy. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Miriam.
How are you?
In a state.
Okay.
So, online. Would you help me look for dates?
A strange thing to ask me.
I could give it time, you know, to see how it goes, or I could come straight out with it, looking for prospective mother of my children. Honest.
I think you'd get a lot of replies.
From the wrong people. I miss her.
I should hope so.
What do I say to her? How do I get her back?
You're sure you want her back?
Yes.
Or someone like her, who wants to have children but isn't actually her.
I want her back.
Whatever?
Whatever.
Okay, then tell her you want her back. Actually her, not the person a bit like her. 10 years' time, 20 years' time, and you're with Abigail. Your hair's going to be grey, and hers. You're sitting in the garden, glass of wine in hand, sunset, and you hear children from the garden next door splashing in some little pool, laughing. But you don't have any children, and you never will have. How do you feel? You're meant to say, fine.
Fine.
Too late. You don't want her back, Matt.
I don't know why I have this need. But I have it.
She'll always love you. Let that be enough, really. I saw Citizen's advice. They were very good.
And?
Got me to check that the debts were legitimate. They are. And see if I was entitled to any benefits. I'm not. And whether I can get a debt relief order. I can't.
I didn't really mean
No, you don't want to know all this. Anyway, it looks like I might be able to hold on to the flat because the debt's with the credit cards, not
That's
with...
good. That's very good.
But without an income, If it meant I couldn't pay the mortgage, they... Anyway.
But that's good. Good. Because we've got a problem with the exhibition.
Uh-huh.
It can't go ahead in the way you're planning it. It's just not possible.
I've got to be true to these stories. I've got to be.
It would mean we would have to let you go.
I'm being sagged.
You don't have to be. That's what I'm saying. We just can't do the exhibition like this. I'm not having it on my CV.
It won't be on your CV.
Which is it to be?
But this really is jumping the gun a little. We have to find out first whether or not...
Mum?
Yes, Mrs. Fisher?
I knew about it on my ankle.
Well, we both knew
But
about
sooner,
it.
before. Why would they do that? Let you see that, Mum?
Maybe it was a sort of apology. All that furniture, big furniture, they weren't going to give it back to me now, were they? They wanted that I should see it. They wanted me to know. So I remember they were sort of apologizing.
Maybe if you'd lived longer, maybe you'd have gone back to the story and said, that door left half open. No, you're right, it wasn't an accident, but it wasn't an apology either. It was a fuck you. Not that you would ever have used that language. They were saying fuck you. Maybe that's how you would have remembered them if you'd lived long enough.
I didn't get it instantly, the job.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Really?
Any idea why?
I was completely prepared. I met all of the specs. I think I delivered a strategy with complete clarity.
You should have got it then.
Yes, I should.
These things are never fair. I remember once.
I wonder if they... I think they may have felt I was a little... safe. What do you think?
Me?
I think I can be quite inspirational.
You can. What I was going to say was that if I couldn't pay the mortgage, they'd repossess, just take the flat.
That doesn't have to happen, Miriam. You can keep this job so
Well, then
long
it
as
seems it does have to happen. Okay. Complete loss of power. Helplessness. Nowhere you could turn. And a threat you're carrying on existing. And in that moment, that series of moments, all your plans, all your assumptions about everything, about everyone, all drain away, become nothing. No beliefs, no self, no future at all. I knew about it before on my ankle.
Yes, you should have come as soon as I noticed it. We've said that.
Before that.
You didn't.
At this point, it really doesn't matter.
You didn't.
whether-
I know you didn't. I saw your face when you found it.
Yeah.
You didn't know.
I knew already. You saw my face. Yes, you saw my face when I saw that you knew.
What?
I really think
You mean
should...
you kept it from me? Is that what you're saying?
To start with, I thought it just couldn't be. These things don't happen. Not to yourself. they happened somewhere else, to someone else, in some other universe. So I just thought it would go away, but it didn't. So I tried not to look at it. It was horrible. The colour, that strange mix of colours. I didn't want to look. I'd take my socks off, put them on again, and not look at it. And then I thought maybe you'd notice, or someone else, but I didn't want you to see, didn't want you to know. It was as if you knew, it'd be real, it'd be really there, but somehow, if you didn't see it, if nobody saw it, it wouldn't go away. It'd still be there, but it wouldn't be real. Somehow, it wouldn't be real.
You mean you let this thing grow and get bigger and bigger, worse and worse?
I was hoping, and after a time it became normal.
I think you need to talk this through.
What about me? What about everyone else? Don't you think of anyone but yourself? Don't you think about your future? Don't you know that this thing could kill you? That you've just watched it get worse and worse? How could you? We should have known sooner. We should have left sooner.